Okay, we're in the cab of the truck now, and one thing that I really like about this truck is that all of the information that we need, a lot of the information that we need, is posted right in plain sight. So this is on the driver's side of the dashboard, and it says to drain cooling system, top right side of the radiator, bottom right side of the radiator, right side of the crankcase. So that tells us where all the things are that we have to open up in order to drain the cooling system. So that's very handy, and I looked and I located all of those, so we can drain the cooling system when we are ready to do so. So, welcome to Calvin's garage. We are preparing the truck to change the head gasket, and what we are doing right now is we are draining the coolant. So that's the first drain valve, and then there's another one on the engine that we have to drain afterwards, and the coolant is not looking super great, so I'm glad that we're changing the coolant out. So we've got the coolant changing, and we have why is that up? So we're draining the coolant out now, and then tomorrow we're actually going to change the head gasket, and then when we get the head gasket changed, we're going to change the oil and refill the coolant. Another thing we might do is we might change the gear oil in all of the differentials. So that's an update on the truck's progress so far. Thanks for watching. So there are two ways to buy coolant. Well, first of all, there are different types of coolant. Some newer cars use a special type of coolant, and then there's universal coolant. And for each of those, there's two ways to buy coolant. You can either buy it pre-mixed, so it comes in a 50-50 mixture, half coolant, half water, or you can buy it concentrated or full strength. The full strength coolant, you need to mix it with water. The full strength coolant has a chart on the back that tells you what kind of mixture you need in order to get the freeze protection you are looking for. So this chart only goes up to 20, and I think the coolant is 22 quarts. So for 20 quarts, and we want freeze protection down to at least minus 34, but more minus 38. So that is 10 to 11 quarts of coolant, quarts of antifreeze coolant. So that means 10 or 11 and 20, So that's about a 50-50, a little bit stronger. So what I've got here, this is 1 gallon, which is 4 quarts. And I've got another 2 there, so that's 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 quarts. 12 quarts of coolant, and then the rest is going to be water. Now, I know a lot of people that mix the coolant and water before they pour it in. I don't do that. So if you've ever seen, so a little bit of chemistry for you all. By the way, I have a second channel called Calvin's Lab, where I talk about science stuff. Basically, coolant dissolves readily in water. It dissolves really easily in water, and vice versa. Water dissolves really easily in coolant. Therefore, even with all the narrow pipes and everything in the coolant system, if I were to take coolant, pour it in, and then take water and pour it in, that coolant and that water would mix together just fine. So it'll all mix together just fine inside the system, especially when we start the engine and the water pump gets going. When the water pump gets going, it's going to mix everything together. It's going to act just like a blender. So there's really no need to mix the coolant and water before you pour it in. You just need to know how much coolant you're going to pour in, and then top it off with water, which is what I'm going to do today. I'm going to pour in the 3 gallons of coolant, and then I'm going to top it off with distilled water. So that's the end of the footage that I filmed while I was working on the truck. I realized that I didn't actually film bleeding the cooling system, which is an important part whenever you are draining and refilling a cooling system. So anytime you've replaced a radiator or replaced a radiator hose or a thermostat, you need to, when you refill the coolant, you need to bleed the cooling system. But I didn't film that because we didn't actually do that. We didn't actually fill it all the way with coolant either. We ran into a problem while we were working on the truck replacing the head gasket, and the truck's going to need some more work. And so instead of filling the cooling system all the way and then having to drain it all later to refill it again, we were only going to be moving it like a couple hundred feet, so we just didn't fill it all the way. But that's a topic for another time. You'll have to watch the video series as they come out, and we'll talk about what went wrong and what we're going to do to correct that in the future. But in the meantime, so how you fill a coolant system. So you fill it by the thing on the top of the radiator. If your car doesn't have a fill thing on the top of the radiator, then you fill it using the coolant overflow reservoir only. So after you add the fluid, you have to turn the vehicle on and let it idle, let it run up to its normal operating temperature. If you have a temperature gauge, it should show you right about in the middle. So you run it up to its normal operating temperature where the thermostat is fully open. Because when the thermostat is closed, now there could be a coolant bypass on the thermostat that allows some coolant to flow even when the thermostat is closed. But really you want that thermostat to be fully open so that coolant can get into all of the places in the engine. Well, all the places that the coolant is supposed to go, that is. But, so you leave the radiator cap off the radiator. You turn the engine on. You let it warm up to its normal operating temperature so that the thermostat is fully opened and coolant is flowing through the entire system. And you will see that the level of coolant in the radiator will go down to where you can no longer see it when you're looking in the radiator cap. When it goes down, just add more. They actually make these things, these funnel adapters for the top of the coolant, to the top of the radiator cap, so that you can just pour a bunch of fluid in and the bubbles will come out and the level will go down, but you don't have to sit there and constantly add fluid. So you keep adding fluid until you can see the fluid in the, when you take off the radiator cap, you should see a little bit of fluid in there. So you just keep adding fluid until so that you can constantly see the fluid there until it no longer goes away. When the when the coolant level in there is no longer going down, that means that all of the air is out of the system. You don't have to worry about the air in the system. Now, then you can put the radiator cap back on. Well, you can shut the car off, then put the radiator cap back on, and then you're good to go. So make sure you stay tuned for the upcoming videos to hear how badly changing that head gasket went, all the things that went wrong, and you can hear about all the work we're going to be doing this upcoming year.